All right, so everybody, I'd like you to meet Chrissy, who is our newest member. And I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but she was one of three candidates that applied for the position and was selected by Troika. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Ralph, I had talked to you during the process, so thank you for the time, and Susan, you as well. I appreciate it. Chrissy Francona, I live on Redgate Lane with my husband and our two kids. My daughter's about 4.5, so she'll be in the school system next year. And my son is almost 1. So they both go to Brown Bear on 3A right now, but will be Cohasset students soon. Um, but excited to join. I've been previously, and then most recently worked at DraftKings for several years, leading M&A and strategic planning. So I've done a lot of capital allocation in the private sector, but excited and interested to learn more about how we do it here in town and hopefully contribute.
Great. So your microphone's going in and out a little bit, but I think
Okay.
most of us got most of that.
Okay. Yeah, I saw it. It should be better now. I don't know what the internet was.
Okay, great. All right, and welcome. First, should we all introduce ourselves quickly to Chrissy? I mean, she knows Ralph and I, but would the rest of you guys like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I
Okay.
can start. So Chrissy, I'm Kathy Forrest. I've only been on the Capital Budget Committee since September. So also a newbie. And am also, you will find out, the Capital Budget Committee rep for the Public Safety Facilities Working Group, which is soon to move from working group status to committee status. I've been working fairly closely with the police and the fire and the EOC regarding the station. And my background is in finance and biotech. I've worked for 30 years, so I've done a whole lot of stuff. But right now, I am like a fractional finance person for biotech startups, basically, is what I do. So I have finance background. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I've been here since 2002, and both of my kids went through the Cohasset school system.
Thank
Great.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Rob?
Sure, I'm Rob Casemeyer. Nice to meet you, Chrissy. And I have a side question, and that is I've been talking with the with Chris Pratt and the other folks over there, and at in water, and I had and so this is relating to cost of capital. So, Chrissy, Susan, have we dealt with cost of capital issues for for the public sector like this, for investment or for how they would look at selling something, the value of a chain of cash flow or anything like that, discount rate or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do that when we go to market for bonding and things like that. But
What is the cost of capital roughly in those kinds
uh,
of situations?
I think hovering around 4%, Michelle, is that
4%. Okay,
correct?
no value associated with the cash that we might be generating or whatever. It's just cost of debt. Okay,
Correct.
great. Well, there you go, Chrissy. You're that's relates to your cost of capital calculations, I'm sure. My background is I'm currently, as Ralph knows, I'm acting president of the Old Goats group within Cohasset, and I've done a lot of work with. I ran a bunch of manufacturing companies, different industries, automotive and aerospace, and then did spent a fair amount of time also with the World Bank. So I spent 10 years with the as one of the water commissioners during the time where we were during the 90s mostly.
Right.
Rob,
That's
I thought maybe you were going to quiz Chrissy on the
Yeah,
cost
that's
of
what I thought.
capital.
That's where I thought that was headed.
I'm like, wow, you're mean, Rob. She like already got this job. Leave her alone.
I wouldn't have quizzed her. I would have cold called her.
So I just got an email, a notice that Chris is looking for us to resend the invite.
Yes, so I will
Okay.
resend the invite and maybe
Okay.
Susan, you can call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's call the meeting to order. It is 6:38, and this is the Capital Budget Committee meeting of January 12th. Okay, so I think next up on the agenda was the follow-up on the library, and it wasn't that significant, so I didn't feel it absolutely necessary that we have library present the additional piece. Did everybody have a chance to look at the materials that were on the OneDrive?
Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on the follow-up material?
Sorry, did I miss the public safety update? Or is there just not one tonight?
Oh, shoot, you're right, I skipped it.
You want me to give I can give the update. Well, Ralph, we can't hear you. I don't know what's going on with your microphone. Can
Yeah.
anyone hear Ralph?
No, Ralph's mouth's moving.
You don't have it, right?
Oh, there it is.
You've got it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, good now.
I just turned it off and turned it on again. Yep.
Yeah, so my mistake, Kathy, why don't you do the public safety update? I know that you guys had a session yesterday, did you not?
Yes, so we on January 8th we had an actual working group meeting session that preceded the community forum. We have turned our focus to Elm Street. And what we did was we took a review through the fire programming documents and what might have changed between now and when they initially did the fire programming. With the reduction of the fire substation from 135 King Street, there has been some changes to the programming. First and foremost, the first priority is to try to get to try to fit the second ambulance into the apparatus bay, which would mean moving things around or figuring out how to get it to fit in the current garage, etc. So that is one programming change. The next programming change was to add 2 additional staff to all of the living arrangements, given that we wouldn't have staff any longer up at 135 King. And I think the last item was inclusion of a training room for the fire staff. We did question why they couldn't use the police station training room, which would also be the EOC room. And the understanding we got from Chief Dockery is that the training happens when the firefighters are on shift, and therefore they cannot go anywhere without their apparatus. So it would be difficult for them to drive all of their fire trucks and ambulances and park them outside of 135 King Street in a secure way. So that they would prefer to have a training room in Elm Street. And the thought was also that that might not be a bad idea because it would add an additional meeting room to the town's collection of meeting rooms, which, as we know, is pretty slim at this point. We talked a little bit about timeline as well and trying to push the architects along. They have said that they will get us a revised drawing of King Street with no substation in 2 weeks, but that the Elm Street revisions might take 3 weeks or so more. So we're pushing on them to get those so that they can also be costed out so we can figure out the cost. Any questions so far? I've got more.
No.
No?
Just make sure that Chrissy, you're you're kind of jumping right in here, but there are two separate buildings we're talking about. We're talking about the one up on King Street as being what it looks like it's becoming primarily the police station, and the existing fire and police becoming a fire station, along with some corporate offices for other departments in town.
There has been some question as to whether those offices will remain there or not,
Okay.
or with these additional needs from the fire, whether they can remain there or whether IT and Safe Harbor might need to go somewhere else. So that was a little surprise to Michelle. Um, and we've also been holding community forums. So we had, after our meeting on the 8th, we had a forum at the Greek church. We had one person attend. So we have been communicating the forums on Facebook, the town newsletter, the Spot podcast, and the Cohasset Anchor. But hard to get people out in the cold, I guess. And so that was a little bit disappointing. And then we had a forum at 11 a.m. on Saturday at 135 King Street. We had a little bit more people there. We had about 7 or 8 people in attendance, and it was a really good audience with really great interaction, some really good questions. So it was quite useful. And then today we went to Wilcott Commons and did the presentation. I was disappointed. We had about 13 people at Wilcott Commons. And we did it like right before the cafe. I thought that there would be more people who would attend, but it was only 13 people. So we've only gotten to like maybe 20 people or so. We have our final forum on Thursday night at Beechwood Meeting House. We'll see if anybody shows up. And we also have another working group meeting on Thursday before that. So we're looking at ways to communicate where we go to where people are. So for instance, go to like the baseball, softball board meeting, etc. So we'll be doing some thoughts around that. I will say that the consistent feedback that we have received is, how much is this going to cost? And not surprising feedback. That's of course what everybody wants to know, but we don't know the cost yet. So it's why we're also trying to, push forward and get some plans and get the costs so we can start talking to people about what those are. But in the meantime, I think it's really good to communicate with the community, let the community know that we're interested in feedback. We have also enabled an online feedback form, 2 quick questions, like what are your questions and then what are your hopes? And we've gotten some feedback there as well, mostly around the money. So, we'll continue to do that. So we're kind of this dual path of like communicating, getting feedback from people, as well as continuing to look at the plans. What I will say is I don't think there's going to be any significant savings from what was put out at town meeting. It sounds like the fire substation might save us anywhere between 2 and 3 million. But with the construction cost increases and the increased architectural drawings and OPM work, that will probably be negated. So we'll probably be close to the same amount. So really it's a matter of trying to communicate with the community members, as well as letting them know that like we're not building the Taj Mahal, we're not building a palace, like we're building kind of basically what's needed, and it's just what these things cost, unfortunately. And there's a minimum amount of programming that's needed, like jail cells and evidence processing, and we can't not have those, and these things just unfortunately cost what they do. As part of the forums, we've got a presentation, which we kind of updated each time we get questions because it's good. And I can send that to all of you as well. And Chrissy, it might be a nice kind of primer because it's pretty brief. It's a nice primer on the project. You can see what we're saying. We're trying to stick to the facts and not make it super salesy. Yeah, we just trying to communicate and get feedback as much as possible from the town. It's our biggest focus now.
Sorry, everybody, for being late.
Okay, Chris. All right, Kathy. Does anyone have any comments on Kathy's synopsis?
I just have one question, Kathy, and that is where the cost of the item is going to, or the construction is the big issue, the single big issue in it. And have they charged the architect with that, with the idea that, the town was led to believe that it would be on the order of, 10, not 30 million. And So what can we do for 10 or maybe 15? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but it's not possible to do it at 15. You're just unless you have a police station with no jail and no garages and no Sally port and no evidence room, like unless you just want to redo the existing building, but then you've got the same issues. You've got, jail cells that don't meet code, that have failed 10 years in a row. I mean, the architects have really tried to skinny things down and not put extravagances in there. And we've, with the loss of the fire substation, we've had to move mechanicals into areas that were previously office spaces. So the office spaces have been, in the drawings, the office spaces will have been reduced. They've made some changes to the locker rooms to try to save some spaces. But it kind of just is what it is. And the 10 million was just a really stupid number that somebody put out there. I don't think they had a lot of validity behind where that number came from. And it's unfortunate, but it would be impossible to build a police station for $10 million.
Well, for instance, if we have on either side of us very good holding cells for a longer period of time. Maybe if we can work out an agreement with Hingham, Hingham can't be using all their holding systems, holding locations, and at this point, it seems to me, and those are quite expensive.
I can get you some information for why that doesn't work. I don't think Kingham wants the liability for our prisoners, and the people we put in detention. But it's a good question, and we have gotten that question before. And I think Chief Quigley was going to put together a list of the reasons why it's really difficult to share things like detention facilities.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, this is.
I'm obviously new. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Rob.
It's the biggest issue, and it's going to be voted down if it's in the wrong neighborhood. By that I mean cost wise. I just think that's the flavor that I get from it. That's all. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Kathy,
Chrissy, by the way, Chris, you didn't meet Chrissy. She's our new member. So
No,
Hi,
hi,
Chris.
Christy.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and good name.
Agreed. You too.
Kathy,
I think
Because-
Chrissy was asking a
Yeah, go
question.
ahead.
Oh, yeah, and so take this maybe more as a citizen's question at this point, given this meeting. I guess if I take a step back, I'm a bit confused what the rationale for this whole project is at this point. Everything that I had seen was really about response times, and so my understanding is if we are saying, "Hey, we're not doing a fire station," I'm very perplexed as to what we're actually trying to solve for, and if going forward taking the previously architect plan that was going to cost close to 30 million and trying to scale that back so much as, and again, I'm jumping in midstream, so take this for what it's worth, but why are we if we're abandoning hey, it's not response times, it's we need a new police station, why are we not going back to, okay, if we need to solve for fixing code issues, do a renovate versus build new scenario versus kind of taking the Taj Mahal as it seemed and try to scale that back. I'm just curious that. So again, stepping in midstream, but that's sort of where my thoughts are.
So really good question. So response times are still an issue, and this having the police on 3A will improve response times of the police. About 60% of police calls are in the 3A corridor. So you will be able to, increase response times from the police station. What you won't be able to change really is the fire and ambulance response times. But we've done response time studies, and to be honest, they're a little bit muddy. They use a lot of assumptions. And when I look at the studies, what I see is that the Cohasset response times on average are better than the advanced life-saving response times that the National Fire Association benchmarks. So it's not like Cohasset is like failing miserably response time wise for advanced life saving. The biggest problem I see is the police station, and when I share, I'll share the PowerPoint with you, and you'll see some of the photos.
that'd be great.
So it's not just the detention center, but there's no real evidence areas. So, for instance, there's a pre-evidence area that used to be the juvenile detention cell. They had to take that over to make it a secure evidence area because they didn't have any space for a secure evidence area because the current police station was built in the 1950s or 60s. The thing where you go to take fingerprints is also, it's a storage room. There's medical supplies because there's nowhere to store the supplies. And there's nowhere to process evidence. So right now, for instance, when they're processing like drug evidence, they're doing it on the conference room table where they have lunch. So they're processing drugs, like looking at money. They've got biological samples. It's just woefully inadequate for what they need to do these days. They don't have enough record storage. They've got a couple file cabinets in the men's shower room right now. They do not have enough storage for like their outdoor equipment. So they have a garage bay that's like chock full of things like a UTV and all the things they need to do their work. They currently share a driveway with a Harborview senior housing. And so if they have to leave the police station in a hurry, they're kind of competing with elderly and disabled people getting out of the same driveway. So it's a really, really poor setup. And the building, the Elm Street building, was built in the 1960s. So it's not sprinkled. And it's unclear whether you would, most people think you would just have to demolish it in order to build what the police need. So it would be great, Chrissy, if you went and did a tour of the police station. Chief Quigley would give you a tour anytime, and you would be horrified. It's really bad. Like just for instance, when they had the Walsh case, they had to do 90 interviews, right? The Cohasset police had to take over the interviews for that case because the state police, he got fired, obviously. It was not a good situation. And there's no interview room at the police station. So all of those interviews had to happen at people's homes. So they had to carry audio equipment. And for instance, so they interviewed Brian Walsh at his home. Like you can hear the kids in the background. It's just a bad situation for the police that really needs to be rectified. And then the fire department have their own issues as well. As I mentioned, they have 2 ambulances, and right now they don't have room for the second ambulance. There's not enough space. So it's sitting in a garage behind Town Hall. Because it's sitting in a garage behind Town Hall, they can't stock it with like drugs and medical equipment because it's not secure enough. So they can't actually use the second ambulance. So we have a second ambulance, which is fabulous, but it takes at least a half an hour to stock it. And they also have issues with like decontamination. So after a fire or like a medical call out, you will like their gear will get contaminated. And so they need to do decon. And right now, the only place to do it is in the basement of Elm Street, which has poor ventilation, gets flooded. And so it's kind of a health hazard to the firefighters. And there's a couple of other things at the fire station as well. So basically they're really substandard, and particularly the police station is substandard. And there's no real square footage for expansion on Elm Street. Like there's no more space to expand. So, and we're trying to get that information out, to the community. Again, it's tough when you have a community forum and the community doesn't show up, but we realize we need to meet people where they are and try to find other forums to talk to people. But it's good to get your feedback, and if you have recommendations of where we can go to talk to people, that would be great.
Yeah, Chrissy, I think that view or the comment that you made, a lot of us feel the same way. We all know that there's justification for doing something here. And we've all gone on the tour and we've seen the facilities and we know there's justification. It's just that we went down in this one direction that, created a sense that we were going to be able to accomplish this for a certain number. And now that number is what is in everybody's head. And the other realities have happened since then as well. The cost of real estate and the cost of improving and building municipal projects just keep skyrocketing. So it's a real quagmire of a problem. But we have good minds on it, and hopefully we'll find our way through this.
So, Susan,
Yeah.
there's two questions regarding the public safety, if you're willing to take questions.
Yeah, I think Ralph had a question as well. Maybe we take his first and then the. Great.
Kathy, my question has always been the same one, which is what are the alternatives? And this has been a consistent theme for all the buildings where we've had trouble, and we don't come up with alternatives. So as a result, we don't have a success at town meeting, and this has been a repeated problem. I think the number one thing that's missing here is the comparatives. We started to do comparatives to say what have other towns done and what were their costs, what were the size of their populations, and what did their facilities look like. You need to do that, because to say that this thing has to cost 27 million or whatever the number is without having done that, because there are other towns that have done it for a lot less, even in the last 5 years. So you really have to have the comparatives to make the case, because all of the police stations that are done exactly the same way. They all have the same evidence room requirements. They all have the same interview requirements. They all have the same jail requirements. These are almost cookie cutter buildings, because it's just a matter of how other things, which you know as well as I do, that this particular building has a number of unfavorable what would I call it, site problems. Really, that's what it's all about. And in the absence of alternatives, therefore, you don't want this thing to be turned down, because most of us think something needs to get done. But coming in with 17 more million, in view of all of the other things you're going to hear about tonight, about the other enormously expensive things that are going to happen in this town in the next 3 years, it's going to be a tough sell. So I'm just saying, to make it successful, needs to have alternatives. And one of them, I think there are better locations for this police and fire station at far less cost, and it's worthwhile doing it. So anyway, you know where I come from. So.
Michelle, just a question for you. I know we had considered doing a benchmarking study and then we put it on hold. Is there a way we can kick that off again?
Sure, I don't see why not. It was already approved by the select board.
Yeah.
Ralph has provided a tremendous amount of data for benchmarking with other communities that we can share with our OPM. And we can get moving on that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question is, I have not seen the architect skinny anything down beyond removing the fire substation, but I believe that you addressed that already, Kathy, in your answer, because you talked about, the changing rooms and other aspects of the building that they were reducing. I know you guys are seeing this in your discussions as a group, Kathy, but is the public seeing that in your presentation, some of the changes, the physical changes like that?
So we haven't gotten the drawings back from the architects yet. We've requested them.
All right.
But yeah, it would be removing the fire substation means moving the mechanical and electrical rooms that were going to be in that part of the building, which would reduce some office space. And then there's the reduction in the space needed by the locker rooms, because instead of having a male and female locker room, there'll be one gendered locker room with like private bathrooms and changing areas and showers.
Right. Okay, so that's really the answer to the question is the working group hasn't seen it yet, but you've discussed what you've asked them to work on. So
correct. And when we've had the forums at the forum on King Street, we had the old designs, and we took the people who were there through what the changes were going to be.
And then the second question is related to moving the fire annex. It says if the savings of moving the annex to Elm Street is going to consume the redrawing and redesign of 135 King, why not build the fire annex at 135 King and house ambulance number 2 there?
So we think we'll save between like 2 and 3 million, but I'm sorry, about 2.5 million or so. And the architect drawings and the OPM aren't going to be that high. What is going to be that high are the increase in construction costs because we're delayed by a year. So even if we kept the fire substation in and we didn't have any additional architect or OPM drawings, the price of the thing would still go up by a few million because of the time value and the construction costs. So we're just, we're hearing that people don't want us to spend as much money, and so we're trying to find places where we can make savings. The thought is that we've asked the architects to plan 135 King so that the area where there could be a substation would still be there and that it would be kind of shovel ready for when the town is ready to spend the money on a substation, and it could just be built there. So all of, the utilities, et cetera, will be there. There'll be a doorway, that will go outside, but that could go into the fire substation if it's built. So that's the plan.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have schools waiting in the wings, but I think the library is relatively straightforward. So let's see, Michelle, can I share my document that I have on my computer that was sent to us, or?
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's this one. Let me see. Have you guys seen this document?
Yes.
All right.
Of course, in US dollars.
So there was a question or concern about the ability to use the chute to drop off materials in the mailbox in North Situate was mentioned as one that's difficult to use. So she went and visited the library in North Situate and took some pictures. So those are attached here. I believe, Ralph, this was your question about whether it'd be difficult to actually put books into the book drop from a car. So it doesn't stick out quite as significantly as a post office box, but it does. Does that answer anyone's question? Ralph, are you talking? Because you're mute if you are.
Hold on a second. No, I'm talking now. The only thing I can tell you about that is if you look at the one that is the mailbox at the North Situate post office, you'll notice it has a very significant projection, which makes it possible to actually put mail in without getting out of your car. I have no idea what this one does not seem to have that much of a projection, which may or may not work, actually. Hard to know because you have to bring your car very, very close.
Well, the Hingham one seems to have a projection.
It has
Yeah,
a projection.
This one.
I've used that one at Situate. You can do it from your car.
That is the mailbox or the book drop.
The book drop, the picture we're seeing from the Situate Library. I've used that from my
Okay.
car. Yeah.
The other thing that strikes me about this is I hate to use the words ugly as sin, but it's ugly as sin. I mean, and like two other things that are going on in that area, number one is the wall, and the number two is the concrete for the pavilion, continue to diminish the value of that rather beautiful building there, with no concern about the aesthetics of what people are actually doing in that region. I know that may not resonate with everybody, but I can tell you everything that actually diminishes the value, the beauty of that building is really a negative in my view. So anyway, you know where I'm coming from, and I think it's worthwhile saying, what could you do to make that box something other than an ugly white dominant object as you approach that driveway. So
Well, we could probably share that with the library. Maybe it comes in a color that would blend a little better than white. Maybe it comes in a green or something more
Where
natural.
would it go, Susan?
Yeah, it's actually going right when you pull into the entrance, which is a little bit of a concern for me with cars sort of piling up trying to get in the driveway. But yeah, right when you take that right turn into the parking lot, the box would be on your left-hand side.
Okay.
So I can go back and ask about the color or the aesthetics. Any other things you would like me to follow up on?
well, I can tell you there's one place, and this is a residence actually on Nichols Road. It's 100 Nichols Road, where they do have a drop box, ironically, for FedEx and UPS, where what they did is they actually made it attractive by shingling it on the outside. It gave it some aesthetic appeal. I'm not saying you should do that here, but nevertheless, something more aesthetically appealing would be very desirable here, because this is a dominant object. In its where the position it is, you will not miss it for sure. It's the one thing you will take a look at when you actually go in. So anyway,
So
something better.
I'm looking at the quote, and it says 50C series system blue. So it's possible that it's going to be blue and not white.
Color may not make much of a difference in an object like that. So.
Well, one way, Ralph, might be to move it elsewhere in the parking area. That would relieve the concern about cars backing up, and it would also push it, could push it pretty far back and less visible to the street. Would that work?
Yeah, there are probably other places. I think for the library, the problem is actually you have to bring a cart out and load the books from that drop box to the cart. Then the cart has to be wheeled up their handicap ramp and into the library. So the restriction on this thing comes down to where's the handicap ramp, or how do you get into the how do you get the books out of that thing into the library? So I think there's better ideas. This is not ideal by a long shot. And other ideas would actually be worthwhile exploring. I agree with that.
Okay.
Ralph, it says it comes in 7 different standard powder coat finishes. So if you have a particular color you like, you could probably suggest
I don't think it's color, to be perfectly honest with you. No roughly rectangular object of that size and just color will make any difference.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is if you do something like, make it pretty, it's also not going to last as long as something that's like, just more sound and more resistant to weather. Trade-off.
That seems to be one of those 1% considerations, right?
Yeah, okay. I'll have a conversation with the library. All right, so let me stop sharing. Where did I go here?
Are you ready for me to promote the schools?
Yes. Okay. Turn this thing off. Am I still sharing? Oh. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you all? Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year to you too. Is Jennifer joining us? Oh, you're
I'm
there.
here.
Jennifer.
Hello,
Yes.
good to see you.
Sue is
And
with us
Susan.
as well.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Well, we have a lot to cover.
Yep.
Did everybody on our committee have a chance to go through the materials that were provided? Okay. Well, then I think we're just going to hand it over to you guys to present them and take questions.
Great, thank you. So our requests this year are somewhat minimal in new requests because many of our requests are either ongoing requests or multi-year requests. We tried to be aware of what's going on in the town and in the community and where we are with our buildings. Um, so the first request that we're making is an ongoing request with our bus leases. Um, we currently have 10 bus leases. We have had 8 bus leases. We're in year 4 of that lease. Last year, we were approved to bring on another bus. And then when our electric bus no longer worked and was being, I think, sold to maybe Boston, I think is where it landed. Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong. We ended up getting a 10th diesel bus. And that has been very successful. It has allowed us to have a spare bus for when a bus breaks down. The start of this school year, we actually had one bus that was out of commission for almost a full week, maybe a little longer. And so we had to double up bus routes because we didn't have that spare bus at the time. And having the spare bus has also helped minimize our costs for athletic transportation because now we don't have to go out for lease with somebody else for one-time usage over and over and over again. So we are asking for that to be continued. We do know that as our major lease there comes to a close, Sue's going to be working with the bus company to try and roll all of those leases into one lease so that they'll all be on one cycle, which will make it easier for all of us.
So
And
Sue,
so that,
excuse me, Sue, when you do that, are you rolling them onto a 5-year lease? So 2 of them will be 3 years into their 5 at that point, or are you thinking of?
I'm gonna look at all the options because I'm not sure what the leasing companies will and will not go along with. So I'm open to anything. I'm gonna talk to combine them all into one for at least I'd say at least a 3 or 4 year lease, but I'm not sure. They
Yeah,
may, it's really up to what the leasing company wants to work with me.
well, the shorter the term, the higher the payment, so
Right.
keep that in mind.
Sarah,
um,
I have a quick, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
You said cost savings, you've seen some, and gotten some feel for it. Can you quantify that at all? What might be the cost savings that we are looking at from, the athletic usage or others?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do have some of that information. I don't have it at my fingertips. Sue, I don't know if you have it. I know that in the first couple of months of school, we spent over 12, I think it was like $12,000
Twelve or
on,
$14,000.
yeah.
Yes.
And so now that's when we didn't have that spare bus. And so now instead of having to um, send
Outsource.
out for outsource, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Outsource that service and use that bus. We're able to save money. Our athletic, when we do outsource, it costs us anywhere between $65 an hour if we can get that through Hingham Public Schools. But if we have to go through a company like Charles Transportation or First Student, it's about $150 an hour, and both of those have minimums. Charles is 4 hours minimum, so it's a $600 outsource fee versus First Student, which is a 5 hour minimum, so that's $750. So we're now able to save and not have to spend that when we need that 10th bus for an athletic trip.
So if you save 14K for the first 2 months, something like that?
We spent that because we didn't have that extra bus.
But you would have, yes, yes.
So
yes.
moving forward, we don't have to spend that.
So would you multiply that times 5 to get an idea of what an annual savings might be?
I would multiply it by at least 4 for our busier sports months.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that would put it at around around 60K, something like that.
Yeah, I would say between 40 and 60 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and that kind of rolls into the next request, which is to continue to support our multi-purpose vehicle lease. That has also helped maintain that
So
spending
before you jump
cost.
into that,
Yeah,
Sarah, just if you could just review for everybody. I don't want you to get into all the detail that we went through last year in
okay,
that analysis, but there were also reasons for needing 8 buses that had nothing to do with athletics, that had to do with ridership
totally.
and all that. So if you could just give everybody a little synopsis of that.
Yeah, so we went up a bus because of our route lengths and the number of students on buses. And so in the memo that we shared with you, when we added that bus, we were actually to be able to bring our bus route numbers down. So last year, I believe we had 3 to 4 buses that for elementary runs specifically were between 70 and 75 students. 75 students is the max number of students that can fit on the bus. And so when you have upwards of 60 to 75 students on the bus with their backpacks and sometimes with their instruments, it gets very crowded. And so we also were able to bring those numbers down. We now have one route morning and afternoon that's still at 73, but everything else is under 70. And so that's been hugely beneficial for our students. It's also been helpful for our bus drivers because the fewer students, the fewer behavior issues there are on the bus as well. And in addition, our goal is always to try and keep our bus routes at a minimum. We had some bus routes that were nearing 45 minutes last year. And when we're in a town the size of Cohasset, having elementary students specifically on buses for that length of time is a lot. And so right now, our longest bus route is 29 minutes, which is far more reasonable for our students. So that was the main impetus for adding the bus last year. The athletics has sort of been a side benefit as well, but really it's to benefit our students. Our middle and high school routes are definitely lower in numbers because we don't have as many students who take the bus at that point. But even those are still, like, we have one route that's still got 41 students, 32 students, 38 students. So our buses are well used, whether we're talking elementary or secondary.
And just one more thing by way of complexity in this, figuring out the bus the bus solutions. I recall the timing of the school, the start times. Did that not impact
It
the
did.
need for additional buses?
Yeah, so several years ago, we had 3 different start times. And when we went to 2 start times, an elementary start time, a secondary start time, we had to increase the number of buses. And so that really is because when we had 3 start times, we were able to do 3 full runs. Now we have to do all of the runs in 2 runs. And so that obviously increases the number of students on each route. And I can't remember, Sue, maybe you remember what year that was. I can recall my kids being in school at that time, but I can't remember the year.
Maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It's been
Yeah,
7 or 8 years. It was
okay.
right before I came on board.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions about the main bus lease?
Just a side question, and that is in the fire department, for instance, when they retire a vehicle, they buy a new vehicle. They take the vehicle that presumably it would be, in your case, it would be the one that is in best repair, if you will, and keep that as a for another few years as a backup, if you will. Would that be it? Have you considered that as an alternative? That's all for the backup situation.
So we had that situation, that exact situation prior to this year. There was an old, we called it the
Right.
Bluebird bus. It was a bus that was owned by the district and we basically ran it until it stopped running. But we owned that bus. And so that's the difference. Again, several years ago, the district did own all of the buses and then decided to switch to a fully leased fleet.
Yeah.
And so now because the Bluebird stopped working on us and was beyond repair, we no longer have any that we own. They are all leased.
Right.
And so
We moved to that model primarily because our maintenance costs on maintaining a fleet were escalating
So
at a
high.
very, very rapid rate. And it made sense to switch to the lease model. Where at the end of these leases, we give the buses back
Mhm.
and start with a fresh set.
There's
If
one
you have a
thing.
car lease,
Okay.
you can, and you have a vehicle that is still operating with reasonable costs. There's a buyout oftentimes. Maybe, and what I'm thinking is that the fleet cost was getting older and so on, but maybe one of those was still operating with reasonable costs. That's
Yeah.
all I'm wondering about. That's all.
Yeah, we do have that and we did look at that, but it also requires having maintenance parties on staff to repair the buses, which we used to have somebody full-time on staff doing that, and now we have somebody who just does minor repairs, but not the significant repairs go back to the leasing company for repair.
Oh, for sure.
And we no longer have a place to do those repairs, really, because our buses are parked in our high school parking lot versus a site where there's access to tools and materials to do those repairs.
Right.
Susan,
Okay.
let me jump in with something that I think everybody needs to review at some time, not today and not now, but in the future. That is very clear that the 200,000 roughly that we use for the buses, and then also the lease for the athletic van are probably not capital. They may be a definition by which they are, but if so, they would show up on our balance sheet. I don't know if they do or they don't. They probably don't show up on the balance sheet. So as a matter of actual bylaw, we do not have the authority to actually take the money out of capital. Now, I don't want to debate it today, and I don't think we should debate it today, that we've been through this before, but others who have been on this committee need to know how we got where we are now, where we're considering leases of any kind capital when they're really not capital and don't fit our actual capital stabilization fund authorization. So I don't want to do it there's no point in debating it today or changing anything today, but we need to revisit that at some time to either change our bylaw to incorporate these or determine whether or not they're on our balance sheet or not, or whether they're truly capital or not. Right now, they clearly are not, as far as I can tell. There may be some exceptions here if they were buyouts at the end. But it isn't clear at all that, in fact, the way we're actually doing this, it fits our bylaw any longer. So I know there's a reason to why we've done that, but I think people need to hear that, and we need to have some more professional opinion about exactly how we should treat this kind of an expense.
So I'm going to get really geeky, but there has been a new accounting lease pronouncement that's come out in the past couple of years, and the school buses will need to be on the balance sheet in accordance with that. So if they're not on the balance sheet, they should be. So from an accounting standpoint, they will be on the balance sheet. I don't know how that impacts our bylaws, though.
Right, and Ralph, when the basic differentiator for determining whether it's on or off balance sheet is whether it's considered a capital lease, which means through your lease payments, you end up owning it at the end, which we did that on the Chromebooks and things like that. This one does have a fair market value. Does it not have a fair market value option? Remind me, I think it does. Yeah, so technically this one would be considered an off balance sheet lease. And I'm not sure how the town is treating it.
I don't think it matters anymore. I think they're all on
You're
balance
saying it
sheet.
doesn't matter, but fair market value leases in general you're saying buses are specifically being excluded from that. But fair market value leases in general are usually off of a balance sheet. But something to definitely look into, Ralph.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, do you want to go into the vans since we're kind of on that same topic?
Yep, that would be great. So last year we worked with you to do a multi-purpose vehicle, which is, we call it our van, although the name is definitely different. And that supports our athletics and some of our smaller field trips as well during the day. It is a van that serves for 14 students. And really our rationale was that we were spending far more money when we were outsourcing the buses, similar to those same costs that I just explained with the regular buses. And we have a lot of teams that are able to fit on on that multi-purpose van. And so when we wrote this memo for you, we had already used the multi-purpose vehicle 18 times between September 1st and December 1st. And for each of those times, it saved us roughly $500 to $750 an hour. And so we anticipate as we go through our winter sports season and then our spring sports season that will continue those savings. We also use this vehicle to support a lot of our in-school field trips when our students in, say, our Marine Science Club go down to the CSCR. It sits right outside my window, so I get to see students getting on it and going down to wherever they're going on a regular basis. And that's been incredibly helpful. And because it's a multi-purpose van or multi-purpose vehicle, it does not require a special license for our staff. And so our teachers, our coaches feel comfortable driving it. And it's been really well received by everybody. And so we would ask that you continue to support that. The lease cost is $22,034 per year. And we are going into year 2 of a 5-year lease. Any questions about that one?
Just a little bit more information on that by way of backup. You had originally requested 2 vans, correctly?
We
Correct.
did.
And we determined to start with 1 and see
Yep.
the
Yep.
adoption of it and the usage. And
Yeah, and I think right now we're in a good place. I think gathering additional data this year will be helpful, but because we now have um, a full bus that has replaced our Bluebird and a diesel bus that has replaced the electric bus, we're in a much better place than we were last year because obviously the Bluebird was broken down often and our electric bus couldn't go very far. And so but the multi-use vehicle has been a great benefit to our teams and to allowing us not to outsource as often.
I think that would be a great idea after this school year to provide data. I know we went through a couple iterations before we got one that was a little easier to understand. So in the same format for comparative purposes, that would be very good to see.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And we've been keeping track actually month by month and comparing the outsource costs because it makes a difference to our operating budget as well. So we've really been tracking it quite closely.
Okay.
All
Questions
right.
by committee? Any? Okay.
Okay. Our next request is year 4 of 4 for our interactive whiteboards. This is a request that started before I came into my position. In year 1, all of our whiteboards for a long time were smart boards, and they were all nearing the end of their useful life and needing to be replaced. And so at that time, working with the schools and technology, the decision was to move towards these interactive whiteboards. And they started installation at the middle school in year one. In year two, installation happened all throughout the high school. Last year, we actually did half of Osgood and half of Deer Hill. And the request this year is for the final year to finish off Osgood in Deer Hill. I will say that the teachers have been really grateful for the boards. They are easy to use once they're installed. They use them regularly. Students can go up and use them as well. And so the final year of installation would be $127,689.
So Sarah, on the map, it shows 28 units in both schools. But we did 13 last year and then another 13 is 26. Did you get funding for the other two someplace else? Or did I just?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer to. I can get that answer though.
Just curious. All right, so these are exactly the same model that we were initially quoted. We just broke it down in over a couple of years instead of biting it off all at once.
Mhm.
And we're going with the wall-mounted versions. I think we did do some that were on carts at one point.
So we actually give teachers the option, and that's already incorporated into the costs.
Okay.
Mhm.
So kind of pursuant to what Ralph was saying about the bus leases, the kind of cost per one of these displays is under 5,000 per. At what point, and the other thing that worries me, not that I don't like support this, but I do worry that when we buy things like this in big chunks, it means we're going to have another big chunk expense in 6 to 7 years' time when these are obsolete. And is there not a way to get on a better cycle where this is just part of the operating budget and there's some replaced every year versus these kind of big chunky?
So I think that's something, Kathy, that we can look at. I think up until this point, that from what I understand, and Sue can jump in, that isn't how technology has been handled in the district. I know that even when we're talking about Chromebook leases, I've been having conversations with Dan and can see the years that we're going to be needing to come back for a refresh of our Chromebooks. And so there's a cycle there, and that's how things have been handled up until this point. So I'm definitely open to talking about how that could look different. I think the hard part for us right now is that the the costs are so large. And I know that piece by piece, like a Chromebook certainly is not going to meet a $5,000 threshold, right? And each interactive whiteboard doesn't necessarily meet that, but the bulk purchase does. And the anticipated lifespan of these devices is longer than 5 years. And so we don't have that space. And I know that I don't want to come and say we don't have the room in the operating budget, but we don't have the room in the operating budget to absorb a cost that's over $100,000 at this point. But certainly open to talking about different solutions because this is not an issue that's going to go away over time. Technology is ever changing and it's built to last only a certain number of years at this stage. So we just need to, have more conversation.
Well, a good way to measure is how are we doing with the ones that have been installed for a number of years? Are they performing well, or are we having issues with any of them? Or
We are not. As a matter of fact, last year there was an issue with one at the middle school. They came out and replaced it. Those are the oldest ones we have, and we haven't had any issues with any of them.
Right.
Yeah. No, they've been great so far.
I mean, I almost wonder if like a lease option would, I don't know if you can even lease these, but if that would make sense here where, you just have an ongoing cost every single year and these things can get upgraded when they need to get upgraded. And
Mhm.
of course, then you're locked in to, a certain lease company, or certain lease supplier. So there's upsides and downsides.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we do with the Chromebooks, Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the maintenance. Is that included in are we paying for that incrementally, or is that included in this professional services and labor? I'm looking at the project summary, and the professional services and labor is more than 50% of the equipment cost. Do you know why
Mhm.
that's so high?
So they do come in and do all of the installation. And so the labor, that's a big chunk of the labor. But they do service as well for a period of time. And then some of the service we take on as well. But they come in and do some of it, not all of it.
Okay, it just seems really high, the labor cost.
I think that's the full installation. Because it involves not just putting it wherever it is, but there's a lot of wiring that goes along with it as well.
Oh, so they do that as well? They do
They
that
do.
Go wiring.
Mhm.
Well, it sounds as though I mean, I apologize for not remembering, but there must be some kind of a warranty program if they actually physically replaced one in full, so. I mean, you pay for that in that service, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but we could find that out. I'm just looking at it now to see.
yeah, it's not, I don't see it in on the quote, but must be documented somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can find out though.
Oh, here it is. It's in section 23 on the back of the quote.
I was gonna say, it's further along in the quote. There's like multiple more pages of just
Oh, yeah.
language.
So 1 year from the date of installation.
I'm not seeing that. What did you see 1 year?
That's
Oh, yeah.
in 23, 1 year.
Yeah, any defects with the actual product is 1 year installation, and then, but they cover the maintenance throughout the life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that they're working out well, and
Yeah, they've been great. All right. Good to go on?
sure.
Okay. So next is a request for additional cameras. Last year we requested year one of this bigger request, where we were updating cameras internally in buildings, mostly Deer Hill Middle School and High School. This year, we complete the request for just a couple of additional cameras at the middle school, high school level, and then outdoor cameras as well. Some of this is not new cameras, some of it is updated cameras as well. And so we've been working very closely with Ron on this, and he went with the company who gave the quote to identify which of the outdoor cameras really were ready to be replaced and where we needed additional cameras for greater visual coverage. In many of the cases, some of the cameras were 11 years old. Their pictures were very blurry and hard to see, and some of the angles are not being addressed. The school leadership is looking for more camera coverage outside, as were the police and IT departments. And so this request covers all of the outdoor cameras and a few last cameras internally at the middle school and high school. And then some outdoor cameras at Deer Hill and outdoor cameras at Osgood. I did note on here that we hadn't originally talked last year to you about Osgood outdoor cameras. And so understand that if that puts this request over and above, that we might not be able to do that. But the amount of outdoor usage that the Deer Hill Field and courts and playground get, as well as the outdoor usage of all of the area of the secondary school, does prioritize those three buildings.
So would you say, Sarah, that a lot of the impetus is security of the building itself and
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, it very much is. I think we're seeing increased use at all of the buildings outdoors. And I think being able to maintain security, I think also being able to see outside during the school day is very helpful when we have strange vehicles come through, things like that, to be able to see it without having to necessarily go out first and do some checking internally. It makes people feel very safe to be able to have that extra coverage.
Is anybody monitoring the cameras, or are they kind of like up somewhere, or how does that work? How does the monitoring work?
Yep, every main office has the ability to monitor and do monitor throughout the day. We're not monitoring necessarily, like nobody's sitting there and looking to see who's driving by and who's walking through what hallways. But definitely the entrances, those are always up. Having been through a lot of safety trainings, it's amazing what a front office staff member can pick up when they're constantly monitoring the surroundings of a building, and what we can intercept. And so they are constantly monitoring those because that's how we maintain safety in our buildings.
So when they monitor them, does the software alert them that something's happening on a camera, or do they have to sit there and just keep looking at it?
They look at it, but they're usually up on one screen while they're working on another screen. The other thing is our cameras the police department can see
Okay.
if need be. So if there was ever an emergency, they can see from their location what's going on, which is really helpful.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think the major question for me, Susan, is has any professional actually designed where these cameras go? Because when I look at the drawings, I can see that between IT, that is Ron Menard, and maybe this fellow, Mark Ayot, they did all this themselves. This is all just done by one IT, and the other is this fellow who's just selling these things. But I don't see anything that looks like field of view diagrams. In other words, I don't see any professional sort of analysis of where they need to be. And I see a lot of cameras, for example, on poles in the parking lots, for example. So the real question is, who in fact is designing this, and is that person professionally qualified to actually make the decision as to where they go, what their field of view is, and all that sort of thing? I don't see that.
Those are great questions, Ralph.
So the original placement of the cameras was all based on I don't want to call it a survey. It was a study done in conjunction with the police department. So they brought in Homeland Security. So they did that a few years ago. And then actually last year, Homeland Security came in and did an updated assessment. And so the police department also weighed in with Ron on the cameras in this case for outdoor. But the original camera locations, both interior and exterior, were a result of that initial study that was done between the schools and the police department several years ago. And again, I'm sorry, that was before I came on board. Sue, do you know what year that was? I don't recall.
It was probably 4 years. 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and then Homeland
Thank you.
Security came in last year with at the request of the police department, and I know they did the schools, and I think they did other buildings in town as well.
So when Homeland Security came in, do they just look at what your current situation is and tell you where you need to make improvements? Is that how it works?
So they worked directly with the police department to give their recommendations. They did a full assessment and shared their thinking about where we needed additional coverage.
It's a pretty big number.
Mhm.
And I know we broke it up last time. If we had to break this up,
Mhm.
where would you see the natural point of?
If we had to break this up, I would complete the whole middle school, high school site internally and externally.
Mhm.
And then I would do elementary school the following year. And that's based on usage and number of visitors to the campuses.
Okay.
Are the Deer Hill fields still used for like field hockey events and things, right?
Yeah.
So
And a
it's
lot
really
of
just the,
youth sports as well
Okay.
there.
it's really just
Mm.
Osgood where there's not really playing fields around it. So it's
Correct.
quieter. But
It
also,
is.
it's also Osgood is farther away from the road and farther away from a consistent line of sight. So,
It is, and I would say two other things about Osgood. One is that a lot of times the playground gets used because like the Deer Hill is being used for other things, and so families might go to the playground up at Osgood. And I think the other thing at Osgood is sort of that path up and down between the neighborhoods. Um,
yeah.
so
Okay.
Susan, there really is no real diagram showing the field of view. In other words, no professional diagram has been done.
Well, maybe there is something that Sarah
I could
would that be something you could ask whether the
You really
police
should know that,
something?
right?
I could ask Ron if there's that, and I could also look to get the Homeland Security assessment as well.
Yeah, thanks. Right.
Okay, any other questions, guys, before we move on? Nope.
Okay. Um, the next request is an ongoing recurring furniture replacement request. This is a conversation we had last year with the past years having done a lot of furniture replacement at Deer Hill, looking to upgrade some furniture at the secondary level. Last year, we were able to redo our Babane room, which is the only conference room that we have in the secondary school, both the middle school and the high school, and upgrade some guidance and some counseling office furniture. That has been really well received because that's where we are hosting a lot of our parents. It was very mishmashed. It was broken, and now we have a great site for families to come and to be received and have meetings. It's also because of the space that conference room has also now been used to do some professional learning and lots of other things because the furniture has really made a huge difference. And we also now have a touch screen in there so that we can present. It's made a big difference. As we continue on, we are looking to start to upgrade some classroom spaces so that the classroom furniture can match the learning environment that is being created in the classrooms. We recognize that, we've now been invited into the MSBA process for their core program for the middle school and the high school. if that continues on in a positive way, we'd be looking at a new building. We're very much aware of that, and walking into any new building wouldn't happen for 5 to 7 years. And so this gives us an opportunity to start to upgrade classrooms now. Any furniture that we would purchase between now and then would be used in a new building and or be part of a replacement cycle down at the elementary school. So it would not stop being used just because a new building has come online. It would still be something that we are using down the road as well. So that is an ongoing request. And often it's to replace desks too that are broken, both teacher desks, both student desks. Unfortunately, they just don't all last forever.
So here in the request, it says to begin a process of updating classroom furniture. So how many
At this-
years, like, what are we looking at here? Like,
Yeah.
what are we gonna actually accomplish for 35,000?
So in this year, we were thinking we would upgrade a couple of classrooms so that they become pilot classrooms, where we're able to see what difference they make and try and really look at some of the different furniture that would be furniture that we consider in a new building as well. And, I think as we think about updating in future years, at a certain point, the request would go away because we would have new furniture in a new building. And at that point, it's just a question of where do we stand at the elementary levels at that point. But like Deer Hill has all brand new furniture. They have a few office spaces left to do, but for the most part, they're completely upgraded. And having been at Osgood several times, and maybe I know Sue just turned off her camera for a minute, but I feel like that their furniture is relatively new as well.
So when you talk about having the ability to waterfall it down to an elementary school, would high school desks and chairs work for elementary school age kids?
They would work for upper elementary,
So Deer
so
Hill.
4th, 5th grade, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Definitely not Osgood though. Too little. Any questions before I move on? Okay. The next request, I do have an update from Steve Rotundi. So this request is for football uprights. Excuse me. If you've been to the athletic field at the high school recently, you'll notice that the football uprights are tilted in one direction. I can't remember which one. And years ago, when the turf was replaced, this was not addressed. And so this has been a source of stress at the high school level where we're looking to have those finally repaired. Our field is beautiful, our turf is great, our new track is beautiful, and then we have these faulty football uprights. Not only do they not look great, but they lead to structural instability. And I don't know if you've been to the field when there's lots of younger kids there, but they're climbing on them. They're doing all sorts of things, and we want to make sure that they are as secure as possible. And so when we look at the state of those uprights, their lean could cause them to become loose or lean further. The posts, the padding doesn't necessarily align, and it's quite windy up at the field a couple of years ago, so windy that the press box actually fell over. And so wanting to make sure that they're structurally sound should we get a windstorm like that again. We actually got several quotes for this, 2 quotes specifically. And they do range in price, but I've asked Steve to really get some additional information. And what he has shared is that we really need to be leaning towards the higher quote because it's not until the company gets in there that they're going to know. And I'm going to just actually read off my text about the new ground sleeves. And the ground sleeves, if they don't need to be replaced, that will save us some money. It could save us between $5,000 and $10,000, but until the company gets in there to do the work, they can't predict if those will need to be done. So the higher quote includes new ground sleeves, because we didn't want to provide a quote and then have to say that there's not enough money. If anything, this would be, the actual work would come in less, but we wanted to make sure that we were providing an accurate quote.
So Sarah, are the ground sleeves like a universal part for vendor to vendor of uprights, or do we have to buy the same manufacturer? You know what I'm saying? Because I noticed on one of the quotes, the ground sleeve and the upright were the same manufacturer.
I think you do go with the same manufacturer, and
But our current ones, do we know what our current ones are to know that those ground sleeves have the potential to work, or no?
I don't. I think that's part of why Steve needs the company to get in there. And there's also the piece where if the ground sleeves need to be redone, then we also need them to do the work because they do it without ruining the turf. And so because there are, in my conversation with him, there are some places that are able to do it with local folks in DPW, but when the turf is involved, then you really want to use the actual company so that the new turf doesn't get ruined, because then we run into warranty issues with the turf.
Okay. Gotta get the kids to stop climbing on them.
We actually this year had juniors and seniors and captains of sports go down to Deer Hill to talk about what proper sportsman-like etiquette is when you're at a game. And after that, we actually saw a great increase in students doing what we really wanted them to do as opposed to climbing all over. Now, we can only do that when we have sporting events on Saturdays and things. That's a whole different story when it's youth sports, but that is part of the concern, is that they are climbing all over them. Any other questions about the football uprights?
The only thing that struck me at all, Sarah, was that the uprights might be costing what, 12 to 13,000 or somewhere in that range, right, for both ends of the field. But the installation, these ground sleeves, would be 16,000. It was seems to be a sort of a huge sort of gap between the actual cost of them and then this 16,000, which would be for concrete, basically concrete sleeves, is what they are. So did that feel right to you or not? That 16,000, that's a lot of dough for just 4 concrete sleeves.
Yeah, I think that's why I asked Steve to go back and do a little bit more digging. No pun intended. But unfortunately, what he got back was that until they get here and they start looking at it and doing the work, they can't really tell. And so the hope is that we don't have to pay that much, because hopefully our ground sleeves are in good working order and we don't have to replace them.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not having the competing quote include that, it does make it difficult to be comfortable that $16,000 number is verifiable, you know?
He had been talking to RAD as well, but he's just had no luck getting that third quote from them.
Not a good sign when you can't get a quote from a vendor.
Yes. So, all right. Our last request is for performance risers for the Deer Hill and the middle school, high school. If you looked at the memo, you saw some photos of our current performance risers. If you've been to any of our concerts, you've seen them as well. Our risers are 18 years old and they are very well used. They are not ADA compliant anymore. The the clips that usually hold them together, many of them are broken off. The anchor brackets are broken off. The leg connectors are broken off. Um, the the risers themselves, when you're standing on them, feel a little bit wobbly. Um, some of the treads have been worn, and the handrails are, in some cases, not even there anymore. And so we are asking to replace these at both schools so that when our students are performing, that we have more faith that they are on a safe performance riser that is not going to be faulty while they are using it. The the replacement for the middle school, high school is just over 13,000. The replacement for the Deer Hill is about $15,400. You know, I think this is money well spent given the fact that our students are standing on them. We don't want them to get hurt while they're in a performance. Happy to answer any questions about the performance risers.
So I will say that I was really happy to see that you put some stuff in for sports, but you also put some stuff in for arts. I think it's really important that we contribute to both. It would be really interesting. I'm maybe not necessary for a decision, but it would be really interesting to see a photo of what the proposed new risers look like. I looked in the quotes. I didn't see any photos. There's just a lot of photos of the old kind of decrepit risers. So maybe as a follow-up, we can get some photos. Did I miss them?
So there's a link to the website for the company that sells them.
Great.
And so you should be able to see
And that's in the
what
memo?
it is. They're
Okay.
linked in towards the where I asked for the Deer Hill ones and then where I asked for the middle school, high school ones, they're linked in at those sites.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at those.
Sarah, the other question on this would be, are the current ones, are the locks actually that keep them from collapsing actually failing or missing? Are they really missing?
There are some that are missing, truly missing.
That's an astonishing thing. My goodness. Wow. That means that they could collapse under the wrong circumstances.
Yes.
My goodness.
So the high school ones are the lighter models that you can move from place to place, and the Deer Hill ones look like they're sturdier and they would stay.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Because at the high school, we use them in the auditorium, we use them in the gym, we use them in the cafeteria, so they need to be, and then actually in Miss Arenstam's room as well. So we need to really be able to move them around. We go where the kids go.
Yeah, the pictures are really helpful because I was confused as to whether the Deer Hill one had a back rail because it's not listed on the quote specifically. Because there's clearly one in the photo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any other questions about those?
I don't think so. 18 years is pretty good usage.
Yeah, I think we got our return on investment there.
All right, so the process is the same as it was last year, where we'll talk to everybody first, and then we'll go back around. And if any questions come up in the in-between, or if you can answer some of those things, I wrote down a couple things that you were going to provide some clarity on.
Yeah,
If you do get another quote on the uprights, that'd be fantastic too.
sounds good. Yeah, I took some notes. I'll send some information along to you, Susan, and if you want to pass it along to the rest of the committee, that'd be great.
So one last question, and there's a color
Mhm.
to this. Is that meaningful in some way, or is there some kind of order of priority going on here, or anything of that nature?
Yep, so the pink is for the ongoing leases that we already have. The yellow is for ongoing costs, not necessarily leases that are a multi-year request. And then the blue are just new requests that are single time requests.
And if you did have to give some commentary on most important, obviously the leases, we have no choice to continue those. Where would you put them?
I would say the interactive whiteboards and the security cameras. And then actually I would put the performance risers above the uprights if I had to choose between those two. And if I had to drop something off, the furniture, we could live without the furniture. I would put all of the other things above that, if that's helpful.
Oh. All right, well, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all.
Thank you.
Yeah, have
Thank
a
you.
great night and good luck
Thank
with the rest of your
you.
meeting.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, are you still with us?
I am. I just promoted Brian.
Okay, fantastic.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Evening.
Well, so following up on our first meeting, I sent along the purchase price and lease to own information for the sweeper.
Mhm.
So the purchase price, we had 300 in our request, was 339, 835. That includes a spare tire, rim for the front and rear, and a 5-year warranty on parts and labor. And we got a 3-year and a 5-year lease to own, so with just under a 5% interest rate. So the 3-year payment amount was $118,815 a year, and the 5-year on that was $74,728. That's basically it for the sweeper. I do have another item. I'll take any questions on the sweeper, but I do have another item that has just recently come up with the RTF tractor that I want to talk about. That's actually a higher priority.
So Brian, that lease payment is more than what we're currently paying to.
That's correct. Yeah. So we're planning on budgeting for the 50,000 or thereabouts. 50. I think we spent 54,000 last year for sweeping. So we're planning on budgeting that for this year. But if we bought this unit, obviously we wouldn't be using that budget line.
So Brian, just one question on, I did do a little reading about sweepers in general, and the Elgin sweepers are considered sort of the Cadillac of the sweepers. Do we have a specific reason that we're partial to Elgin, or did we look at Tenet or any of the others and just decide they don't work for us?
Yeah. So we looked at the ones, there's a lot of cheaper models that there's truck. They look like vehicles with sweepers on the sides. But a lot of our sweeping is on narrow kind of dead ends with maybe a small turn radius at the end. And really the Elgin model is, it'll turn on a dime, and we kind of need that at the end without having to do a 12-point turn in a large vehicle that has sweeper ability.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did talk about that with Carl and Scott, who does a lot of the operation. And the Elgin's really the one with kind of the tight constraints we have on our roads.
Okay. I believe you said this was you own it at the end of the lease, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And how many years, remind me, how many years did we get out of our last sweeper? See if I can find it.
It's a 2001 Elgin.
2001, for 24 years.
Right. I mean, it's been kind of out of commission for the past couple of years, but yeah, I think a 20-year life cycle is fair.
Okay.
And Susan, do we know what interest rate the town is getting for loans?
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier. Usually our bonding is in the 4.
Yeah, so the 3-year interest rate on the lease tone was a 4.97, and the 5-year option was 4.98.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask Linda to give me, like, what we've been experiencing of late. But I remember from our last meeting, it was in the 4 to 4.25 kind of range.
Yeah, so it would make more sense if we got this to finance it ourselves.
Yes, if you're just looking at financing in vacuum, but if you're looking at all the needs that need to be addressed, maybe not.
Well, but presumably if we finance it ourselves, could we do it over more than 5 years? Because if the thing lasts for like 20 years, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, we could. That's also a question for Linda, because they like a rubric of how they determine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my department, but I do know that Linda, I mean, they bundle all borrowings together as much as possible. So terms and interest rates change, from what you start out at a project, it may be a little bit different by the time you finish. She's always trying to seek the best rate and the best terms, but it does change.
Okay. I can reach out to her and get an idea where she thinks this might come in. Okay. Did everybody get the late arrival today on the yard tractor materials on that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't quite clear what happened to it.
Yeah, so the vehicle, I'll see if I can bring up a picture of it. I don't know if you got the pictures. So that's our current unit right there. It's a yard tractor where we use, so it's a frontline vehicle. It uses we move the C&D trailer and the blue bag MSW trailer. We have spares on property, and when they fill up, we use this vehicle to move them around. The timing of filling it up is, we try to go into weekends with empty containers, but based on the variability of how customers throw things out, it may fill up on a Saturday or Sunday, and it needs to get swapped out in a hurry. So this is what we use. The fifth wheel on it, which is that kind of flat plate at the back where the trailer goes into, that's got a hydraulic lift, so it lifts up the trailer without having to mess with the jack stands on it, and that's called the fifth wheel. That's completely failed on the unit. So Sean Harris, who we rented from at $250 a month right now, is coming in. We're trying to plan it so that he can come in and move the full trailers out of the way. We want to maximize the capacity of those and haul them off full, but so he's been doing that. This unit failed a week and a half ago. We knew it was on its way out, but so he said he would get a replacement. He's looking for a replacement, but the rental cost of that is roughly, it's probably going to be on the order of $600 a month. So we're looking at, should we own this instead of paying, rental at $600 a month, $7,200 a year. We do have a quote for a used yard tractor that is a 2016 unit for $25,000, or a new model is somewhere on the order of $50,000. So the payback, the return on investment on that with the rental at 600 is for, the new model is roughly 7 years, and the used model at 25,000 would be about 3.5 years. So that's, this kind of happened quickly. So we would likely go to advisory. We need this unit, whether it's a rental or if it's, we own it in the short term. We can't wait for town meeting. So we'd likely go to advisory for an emergency fund request, but obviously this is, an enduring item over 18 months of over $10,000. So that's why we're here tonight talking with you guys about it. Which way do you feel we should go? Keep with the rental or go with ownership?
So Brian, I know we don't own the other one, but how old do you think that one is that we've been using?
It is a 1990. So it gets a lot, it doesn't do a lot of mileage. It doesn't leave the site.
Mm-hmm.
But when you need to use it, you need to use it quickly, or you have to shut down disposal.
Yeah, definitely a necessary item. But right now it's an operating expense when you're paying rent, and we'd be transferring it to a capital expense.
Right.
So you're gonna have to rent for a little while anyways, right? Because you can't get one of these, like if you were to get one, what are we talking about?
So the vendor that I sent the quote along, they're picking, they deal in these units all the time. They're picking up that used unit for 2016 in a couple of weeks, and whether it comes to us or elsewhere, it'll be available in about 3 weeks. Sean Harris doesn't have one readily available, so he would be purchasing a new one or a used one to rent back to him. So in the interim, he's on an on-call basis, which is not optimal, but we're trying to, again, go in with empty containers on Friday and tell him to check in on Sunday morning if we need to swap something out. And sometimes he's moving it when it's not completely full, which is not, we're not getting our full value on our haul costs. But so that's where we are right now. We're going into the second weekend of that.
I just have a question on it. So did I hear you right that the operating life of the fifth wheel is like 36 years?
Just the plate on the existing tractor it's December of 1990. So that's its.
So it's about 36 years, roughly speaking.
Yes, right. It doesn't do a lot of mileage. Obviously, it's just going back and forth around the yard. I think what's failed on it is really not the automotive part of it. It's the air system. So the fifth wheel, which is that plate, it's not a wheel at all. That is air driven, and it takes about I think they said on the order of like 20 or 30 minutes to just get up enough air pressure to do one lift on it. And if you press on the brakes, then you lose the air pressure. So, and now it's completely not functional at all.
So if the 206 the replacement unit that you're talking about was built in 2016, so that means it has 20 more years to it. Would you agree with that?
I'd say that's fair, yes.
Okay.
Brian,
And so we haven't seen the unit. We'd check it out before we kick the tires on it before we pull the trigger. But that's fair. 20 years.
Brian, the current unit that you're renting, has it required a lot of maintenance? Is it broken down much, or is it?
Yeah, so we do light maintenance on it, just check oil and things like that. Any heavy maintenance goes back to Sean Harris but it's required a lot of maintenance in the past 5 years, or a lot of breakdowns. I don't know specifically what the units are, but I know it's been in and out of service of recent years.
So if we were to own it, that would then be on our side of the ledger, but we also wouldn't be starting with a 36-year-old piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, given the prices of like Ford F-150s and all the other equipment, it seems kind of cheap. I don't know.
Well,
Is it just because there's not a lot to it?
yeah, I'll see if I can bring up a better picture.
Is it small?
It is small. I mean, it's
Okay.
this. Where's the share button?
At the top.
Yeah, I mean, so this picture, it almost looks like a Tonka truck,
Yeah.
but this is the manufacturer's picture of what it looks like. So, not much of a cab. It's really just it's a yard tractor. It's not meant for long hauls or anything like that. It's just for moving containers in and out of spaces, used in loading docks and piers and RTFs.
Even road vehicles anyways, do you license them like a road vehicle?
I think this, I'll have to look at the pictures. I don't know if this one has a plate, but I think it may. So if it needs to go back to Sean's yard.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So what are you looking for in terms of a response here? That's why I was asking about turnaround time and even getting one in the interim.
Yeah, I know this is kind of fast and furious, so I don't expect an answer tonight, but I think we're going to get a little bit better on the pricings of what new is. We've got the used price, and we still are waiting. The hard price of Sean Harris finds a unit, what that rental costs. He told us just verbally that it was going to be on the order of somewhere around 600. So if he finds a used unit, I don't expect to pay that much, but so that's kind of where we are. We'll see where we are at the end of the week, and I don't know when your next meeting is, but I think if it's 2 weeks, you could probably come back with better information, and we're still operating with Sean in the meantime.
Right. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else have any further?
The only other
No.
one, Brian, might be, is there any chance we could do this, buy a new one and do a lease on it, for example? In other words, that's a possibility, right? The other thing is it doesn't probably fit the advisory board, though. That's the problem. They probably can't do anything, right?
So I think, and I mean, you may know better than me, but I think advisory is any unforeseen emergency, and this would kind of qualify. Just
Okay.
We have a piece of equipment that we can't operate the RTF without.
Right.
It's failed.
Okay.
But to Ralph's point, I think what you're saying, Ralph, is it's a long life asset, and if we were to lease it even over a short term and then ultimately own it, it might be a good approach.
Yeah, so I can get the same type of terms that we got. I'll see if the dealer will do something similar to what we have on the Elgin, 3.5 or
Right.
I mean, it's 50 grand. I don't think we'd go longer than 5, but we could see.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, excellent. All right, Brian, thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I didn't have any minutes until today, so they're not technically on the agenda as a line item, but discuss topics unreasonably anticipated. I guess we could throw it in there. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Did anyone see anything that needed to be modified or changed?
No.
So
Okay, do I have a motion to move the minutes?
so moved.
Second.
Okay. All right. Chrissy, you weren't in the meeting, so you will not be voting on the minutes. So let's just do a vote right now. Everybody in favor of moving the minutes? I mean, of approving the minutes?
Aye, Kathy Forrest.
I, Chris Peisch.
Rob Casemeyer, aye.
Yeah. Art Dormitzer, aye.
And Susan Franklin, aye. Okay, great. All right, so I think next we just need to discuss the next meeting date. I know that we're gonna have probably the chief come back because there are still some questions on. He did send an email, but I think it would be best to have a conversation on the response to some of the questions that we had for him. So we'll have the chief come back. Michelle, are you still here, Michelle?
I am.
I'm trying to think of the departments that we haven't yet spoken to.
Got IT, right?
IT is a big one, right?
Yep, you need to do IT, fire. Facilities may put forth a request. I actually asked them to put forth a capital request.
So we did do fire before Christmas
Yeah, but
We,
we had a couple questions still on the
to follow up.
request. So facilities is gonna have something.
I think so.
And then we did have rec come in, and we had talked about having, you know, the departments that didn't even have requests maybe come in and just give us a little background on what's going on, so that would leave Harbor.
Harbor and IT both don't have any requests this year, so if you'd like to hear from them just about their 10-year capital plan, I think that's something we wanted to include in the conversations. We can have them in.
Do we hear from water and sewer?
We do.
Mhm.
So IT doesn't have any specific requests, but the camera thing, they might be able
Yeah,
to
they can speak to the school requests.
some information there.
Is that troubling that IT doesn't have requests? I mean, should they not be like
Well, they
keeping
did-
up with stuff? Like is
No, I think so, Kathy. In the past, they've had so many requests.
yeah.
I think they're still just, working through all of those projects. But I think it would be beneficial to have them in to talk about that,
Yeah.
the success of their projects and what the future looks like. So,
That would be great. And then water sewer. All right, so since facilities actually has a request, we should probably get them on the agenda for the next meeting
sure.
for sure. And then have the chief, the fire chief come back for his questions, and then maybe we could bring in IT as well. I don't think that'll be too much. We should be able to get through the other two pretty quickly. And then IT.
Do you want Glenn to come in to talk about land for the police and fire station?
Glenn to come in and talk about, I'm sorry.
So I know Ralph has lots of questions around the land and what parcels of land have been looked at. And I think it might be helpful to have Glenn come in, and especially as Chrissy is new, it would be good.
Yes. Yes, just want to make sure we don't put too much on the agenda.
Yeah, so the facilities request, Susan, I would also invite Bronwyn for the library because it has to do with the library building. But it would fall under the facilities umbrella.
Is it related to the brickwork that we funded last year or no?
No, it's not. It has to do with their doors are not ADA accessible and they need to be replaced, and the cost is significant.
Okay, well then, we should probably hear that one sooner rather than later.
Agreed.
What, how does everybody feel if we put the IT a little bit later with Harbor and maybe one of the enterprise funds? So that we can get through facilities, library, the fire, and have Glenn come in and talk about the site.
I agree, Michelle.
Okay, let's do that. All right, so let's talk about when the next meeting is going to be. Next week is Martin Luther King Day, so it's not going to be that one. So the 26th?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay,
Perfect.
all right then. Unless anyone has anything else they would like to add?
The only thing I would suggest, not for tonight, but in the future, we probably need to have a nice consolidated stabilization fund analysis for the three funds we control, so that we could show those and say, where do all of these projects fit? And we can look at them and say, well, what's our total now? So we
Yeah.
probably need a really good stabilization fund for each of the funds. So stabilization chart.
Well, we do have that, but I guess we should go back
It
to.
it isn't all that nice to use right now. We probably should clean that up a bit and make it have all of the things in there. I don't see all of the stuff in there that should be there. So
All right, I'll take a look.
take a look. Sure. Yeah. It's good to show that at every meeting so we understand exactly where we are.
Yeah, especially as we, in the early stages, you're looking more at the individual requests and trying to understand them and their need and all that. But then, yes, we do have to plug them into the
To
reality.
plug them in. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah, all the requests sound very reasonable, but we don't know how much money we have, so it's hard to.
Yeah,
I did consolidate a one pager. And Susan, I'll share that with you. That may help you when you look at the analysis. The only thing I didn't add to it is the turnback money. But we can add that in. I do have a quick update on the electric school bus. So Sarah was correct. The intent was to turn it back, sell it back, whatever we were going to do with it, right? We all landed on we weren't going to sell it, we weren't going to purchase it and then sell it for a profit. It just wasn't worth it. So we were going to turn it back to the company. Over the holidays, I received an email from the company asking if we had any desire to purchase it. The negotiation went kind of like, no, we don't want to purchase it, but if you want to hand us over the title, we'll be happy to take it off your hands. We received a subsequent proposal saying, would you pay any dollar value for the bus? So there's some analysis going on in the background, but really, we don't want to pay for the bus. We know they have nowhere to put the bus. So we're willing to take it if they're going to assign the title over to us, and then we can talk about what to do with the asset once we have it.
why would we want to take it? I thought it didn't charge, or we had issues with charging it.
Because the bus is worth something. It wasn't worth us purchasing it $125,000 to then resell it. But if we do have the asset and it doesn't cost us anything, then we're in a better position.
That's really, so you could use it for a replacement for the Bluebird or whatever.
We could use it, or we could then find the market to sell it and take that money and put it back into capital. So those are things we could talk about once we figure out what's happening with the company that
So just to rehash it, we returned it and got money for returning it.
we haven't returned it yet. We signed a termination agreement that said,
We would get 20.
no, that we're not paying any money for the use of the bus for the years that we've used it, and we're going to turn back the bus. They then said, we'll pick the bus up within 60 days. They didn't show up. We reached back out and said, come get the bus. They said, how do you feel about purchasing the bus? And then we went back and said, at this point in time, we don't feel as though we want to purchase this bus. Come get the bus. And we're back to, would you pay a nominal fee for the bus? Which we just went back to them and said, we're not interested in paying a nominal fee for the bus. However, if you'd like to sign the title over to us, we will accept it. So that's where we are.
That's
Well,
well managed, Michelle.
What's feel is really the
A
question.
lot of twists and turns in this one.
It
So-
sounds like it.
Yep. So if we take ownership of the bus, we're ahead of the game. If they
Well,
can pick up the bus,
It
it's
sounds
no
like
harm, no-
maybe the bus has no value.
the bus
Maybe
does
for
have
parts.
it does have a value. It does have a value.
Okay,
So
keep us informed on that.
well,
Just-
so my point being the $34,000 that we were going to turn back to capital, yes, we can still turn that back. However, there may be additional turnbacks if we're able to sell off this bus.
All right then.
The only other thing, Michelle, do you want to talk at all about the potential for a large contract to evaluate the MSBCA or the Mass School Building Association project? Is there going to be a significant request for money in this coming fiscal year, and will we be talking about that?
Yes and yes. So I haven't received the timeline from the schools. But the last I heard, they're going to be asking for funding for a feasibility study. It's a significant cost. They would come to capital to discuss that cost, because typically a cost like this would be built into their stabilization fund. But since we're doing the roof, and this came so soon after the roof was approved, there's no funding in that fund. So they'll come before capital and talk about the study and the cost associated with the study and the timing. I don't think they actually have the timing nailed down completely yet, but I do believe it'll be an annual town meeting ask.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Never a dull moment.
Do you have a range, Michelle? Or
Yeah. Yep. So they indicated the range is anywhere between, I think, $1 and $1.7 million for a study.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Right then. I guess that's enough for one evening.
You like a motion to adjourn?
Sure would.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Okay. Second. All right. Roll call. Vote.
Rob Casemeyer, aye.
Chris
Kathy.
Weiss, aye.
Kathy Forrest, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye. Chrissy.
Oh, can I participate? Chrissy Francona, aye.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'll get the materials collected for the next meeting and agenda out to you all. Have a great night.
Yeah, good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Thank you.
Tuesday is
Thank
the,
you.
It's
Good
like
evening.
immersion though, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.